Is finding wealth and maintaining or restoring your health a path to prosperity? Let's talk to someone who's built a clear perspective about it. This is Prosperity and Something Greater. My guest today is Dr. Tyson Franklin. Tyson is a graduate of the Queensland University of Technology, and over the past 30 plus years, he has successfully opened more than 20 podiatry businesses. And at one stage, he operated 5 podiatry businesses approximately 1,000 miles apart, if you can believe that. And from that experience, he learned quickly that systems are paramount if you want to run a business that runs whether you're there or not, or if you're 1,000 miles away. He feels business education is one of the key ingredients to business success. That's why he wrote a book entitled It's No Secret, There's Money in Podiatry. And it's why he focuses his energy on podiatry business coaching and enjoys sharing other podiatrist stories on the Podiatry Legends Podcast. I met Tyson in 2013 when he traveled across the world to attend the Top Practices Marketing and Management Summit in Nashville, Tennessee. Tyson being Tyson, he created and nurtured a number of relationships and friendships that he made at that meeting, and he's been inside our circle of friends ever since. So it's a delight. And you'll soon see why I use that specific word to share my good friend with you, Dr. Tyson Franklin. Well, welcome to the podcast, my friend and pioneering, at least for me, podcaster, Tyson Franklin. How are you, Tyson?
I'm great, Ren. It's so good to be here. I said to you just before we were recording that I've been sitting on the bench waiting to be called in by the coach. Because I know when your podcast kicked off, and I know the type of guests that you have on there. So I kept wondering, when call me up? And then when I got the call, I was very excited too. Thank you.
Well, thank you for agreeing to do this. Listen, Tyson, I don't know that I've been, jumping up and down on the bench, but I've been sincerely looking forward to this. And you've always been on the list because, I met you, and we'll talk a little bit in a minute, I think, about how we met. In fact, that'd be kind of fun. And I've watched a progression of you and your career and, and how you, and I'm going to let you tell the story about your practice and all that happened, But I've watched you as a friend, as a colleague, and someone who has truly, I believe, from my perspective, halfway across the world, but knowing you pretty well, found a kind of prosperity that suits you. And I think you looked hard for that. And it certainly seems to me as though you have, you found it. You're really in that lane. So welcome. And I just want to say, let's start right here. How do you, Tyson, today, how do you define prosperity for you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think prosperity for everybody is different, like different levels of prosperity. But I think the overall thing is exactly the same. So to me, it's a certain amount of wealth or a certain amount of financial security, I think, is part of it. But unless you're healthy and you're enjoying what you're doing each day, then I don't actually think you have total prosperity. So I think there's a certain amount of wealth and financial security you can develop over a period of time. But I don't think there's any point having money if your health is terrible. If you've worked yourself, if I go back 15 years ago, I was making great money, but I was working so many hours and I wasn't enjoying myself. And so I just wasn't really happy. But once I found that medium of what I was making, I had a certain amount of financial security, and then I started looking after my health again. And I think when you feel good, then I think your family is happier when they know that you're happier within yourself. So I think it's a combination of a certain amount of financial security, a certain level of health. Doesn't mean you have to be a supreme athlete, as everyone can see when they look at me that I'm not a supreme athlete. But I think you've really got to have more enjoyment in each day than no enjoyment. So I think there's certain things you're going to do each day that you're not going to enjoy. There's always parts of the day you think, I'd rather be doing something else. But I think overall, when you look at your week or what's coming up the next day, there's a certain amount of joy that you have planned in for the day. So that's probably my definition of it. It was a long one.
No, I love it. You know, it's interesting about the health thing. The pandemic has had silver linings, and one for me has been an opportunity to truly lose almost all, not all, but I'm getting there, but almost all the weight.
You're looking fantastic. I've been noticing it online, seeing the photos coming through and the hiking you've been doing. Yeah, I don't know how much weight you've lost, but
well, in the last year,
it's the most I've seen you lose, and consistently.
Yeah, it's 70 pounds now since I started this.
Yeah.
It's 150 since the highest I ever weighed, which you never knew me when I weighed 420, but
no,
I'm down a lot.
I saw photos.
But this interesting, Tyson. So June 1st, for us now, as we're recording this, that's next Tuesday. June 1st will be the 1 year anniversary of when I started walking every Monday through Friday on the loop that I walk here. And I have never had, I think, in my whole life, a period of time where I exercised routinely without fail for an entire year. So I'm very excited about next Tuesday. That's going to be a good day for me. And then I do my 100 push-ups every day, and that's took a while to build up to, and that's been just great. So the stamina, that's the part I wanted to just say about prosperity and health. I mean, I've always known I struggled with my health, and it's always like everybody, all of us have that thing that we don't have quite right. And that was certainly mine. But to rediscover stamina has been just wonderful. So I couldn't agree with you more about all the points.
Being able to walk up a flight of stairs and not be puffing when you get to the top. And even though the doctor might say, oh, your heart's great, oh, your blood pressure's fine, but there's a certain level of unenjoyment in life when your fitness is being affected. When you know you walk up a flight of stairs, you get to the top and you've got to catch your breath. And you may not even, and the thing is, it may have nothing to do with being overweight. It's purely just you don't have any cardio because you're not doing any cardio.
It's about, like I said, that stamina, just healthy stamina.
Mm.
So this will be fun now. I want, if you would please, let's talk about you and your career, all the way through here. But what is the defining event or moment that really brought you to your career path? I mean, I think folks would love to hear a little bit about you, Tyson.
Yeah, I think that there's been a couple of defining moments, even going way back to like high school when, I was always told that I was a bit of a dumbass. It was just, my brother was super smart, got top of the class in everything. So anyway, a teacher pulled me aside one day and said, have you ever studied? And I went, nah, there's no point because I'm not really that smart. And he said, for some reason I see something in you. I want you to just study really hard for this exam. So really hard for this exam, and if you don't pass it after doing all that study, I'll agree you are a dumbass and you can just give up. I said, okay. So I studied really hard for this exam, went in there thinking, well, it's not going to make any difference, and all of a sudden I got top of the class for this exam. It was a maths exam of all subjects. Never failed a maths exam from that point. Used to get like 100% all the time. And all of a sudden my thinking changed. I'm not a dumbass. I can do whatever I want, which was great. Then at 17, my dad died. And when he died, he left us, like financially we were fine, but he didn't have a will, didn't have life insurance. And back in those days, it was sort of like the husband owned everything. The wife didn't have as many rights as what they do now. So all of a sudden, all bank accounts were frozen. And my mum was like shut down. And it was horrible. It was like a really, really horrible 6-month period where mum was selling rings that dad had bought her to just get money to pay the mortgage, to put food on the table. And I just saw the pain and all that she was going through and what I was feeling at the same time, not just losing my father, but just a whole upheaval of life. And I made a decision that day I would never put my family in the position that my dad put us in. And it wasn't that he didn't love us. He just didn't think he was going to drop dead at 49. It's just, I think it took him by surprise as much as it surprised the rest of us. So I made a decision really early when I was about 17 or 18 that I was going to do whatever it took to make sure that my family were well looked after. That was sort of my drive. Going through my career, things were going along fine. And I ended up doing podiatry. I was going to be an art teacher, but my brother was doing dentistry. So anyway, I ended up in healthcare because of my brother. Because he said, it's one of those things where you'll never be unemployed, regardless of what's happening. People always need healthcare. He said, and you'll always make above average money. And I'm going, okay, we'll look after my family, above average money. That makes sense. So that's sort of, there's a number of reasons why I chose podiatry, but if I jump ahead, the next biggest defining moment was I ended up getting this hand problem where I just got this dermatitis in my hand about 2 years into my career. And I couldn't work for 2 years, where it just wiped them out. And even at the moment, every now and then there's still like a slight rash in my hands at different times. But I had a point where there were cracks from the tip of my fingers right up through to my wrists. I had blood infections, and I had to stop work. Every time I came back, I could work for a period of time, and bang, it would just break back out again. So I learned really quickly, I had to set the business up, and I had to employ somebody else. So to do that, I was forced that I had to create systems for them to follow it. So I made sure everything was done the same way that I wanted it done. So out of adversity was how I started creating systems before I even knew there was any such thing called systems. I just called it the way I like things done.
That's good.
I didn't know it's called a system. It's like, this is the way I like things done book. So I just started writing everything down. So when someone come and work for me, I go, this is how I like things done. And I go, now at a certain point, I'm not going to be able to work. So you're going to have to work harder. And other times I'll be back, you can work less. So that were probably the biggest defining moments that sort of shaped my career. And then I think I'd been married. The first time I got married, it didn't really work out. Married the wrong person, different goals in life, different visions, and that just created so much conflict. When I met my second wife, we were on the same page with everything. We're completely different. I mean, absolutely completely different people. But we have these common goals and we were common beliefs being brought up as well. Beliefs and values, and I think having my wife in my life now really sort of just added on top of everything else that I was trying to achieve. So, I think that answers the question.
Well, good. And then, but let's go a little further with that, because then you actually have had some iterations of your podiatry practice, and have since, you kind of built an empire, right? A while ago.
What's funny is I lost sight of my original reason on why I was doing podiatry. So it's almost contradictory, where my goal was to, when I was 17 or 18, I made a decision that I was going to make sure my family were looked after financially. And I wanted to spend time with my family. But then all of a sudden, I got more focused on the business, and I used to jokingly say world domination, that I wanted to have the best, not just a good podiatry clinic, I wanted to have the best podiatry clinic. And I wanted to be bigger than everybody else. So all of a sudden, I started opening up more. And at one point, I had like 5 clinics that were like 1,800 kilometres apart, so about 1,400 miles apart. And I'm zipping around to all these places, and I was making really, really good money, but I wasn't home very much. And then when my daughter's turning 17 this year, so when she was about 6 or 7, I was on the phone talking to her. She talked every night before going to bed. And one day she just said to me, "Daddy, why are you away all the time?" And my heart it was just her little squeaky voice as a young daughter. And I thought, how do I answer that when my goal was to make sure that my family was looked after? They were looked after. When I had the one clinic in, they were well looked after. We owned our home. We had money in the bank. And I felt really bad that all of a sudden we go, what's more important? The ego of having another 10 or 15 clinics and being the biggest player in the country, or spending time with my family, enjoying life, traveling a little bit more. And that's the decision that I made, that I decided to start selling some of these clinics and just focusing back on Cairns. And then when I had Cairns, I had one in Cairns and one in Smithfield, which was only about a 30-minute drive away, which that was easy to manage. But eventually I decided, I'm going to close that down, and I'm going to have one clinic that just runs like a machine. And it took a number of years to get to that point, and it was around then, 2013, that then I bumped into you. because I didn't have all the clinics, I did have more time, had the money and I had the time. And I thought, okay, I just want to make my practice better. I love the business side of things. I was halfway through writing a book and I went, I need more. I need my mind stimulated by a different group of people. And then lo and behold, this Raymond Jackson dude advertises a thing called the Summit. I go, I'm going to go over and check this out. I said to my wife, I'm going to go to Nashville. I said, do you want to come with me? She went, I'm not going to go all the way over to Nashville. And I went, yeah, but I'm going to this conference and Nashville looks really cool. And she went, no, you go. What was funny, do you see that show on TV called Nashville? Where they had all the music. So anyway, we watched about 6 episodes of it before I left, and my wife was going, I am so jealous that you're going to Nashville. And I said, oh, don't worry. I probably won't have a good time. And here there's all these photos of me having a fantastic time. So, and that was another really defining moment, was to turn up at your summit, meet yourself, meet the Foster boys, meet Peter Wishney and Andrew Snyder, and that whole, I was just exposed to this completely different group of podiatrists that had a different mindset to most of the people that I was actually hanging around with. And that it was sort of like coming on, that was like the icing on the cake. I needed to make sure that what I was doing, most of the things I was doing in my clinic were great. It just needed a little bit more finesse. And I picked up the finesse at the summit. And then I just kept coming back. It was fun.
Yep. And it was a delight to meet you. I remember the summit was over. Diane's like, some guy from Australia wants to come. And I'm like, okay. And then, it was the end of the summit. You're still hanging around because, where else are you going to go? Everybody else is heading home. You're what you do. And I always have this little catch up with the team afterwards. And I thought, this guy traveled halfway around the world. So I asked you out with us that night, and we hit Nashville together and hit it off and became good friends and spent over the years quite a bit of time together. And then you went off and sold ProArch to another company there and really kind of left private practice then. And now I always say you went for a walkabout, you went on your 365-hour challenge every day. Right. For 365 days. Because Tyson, you were looking to get in shape. You needed to do that. And you thought, I'll walk. And you listened to a podcast every day and reported on it every day. I mean, talk about a professional development experience. I watched you go through it. It was remarkable.
It was, It's one of those things that I look back now, and I didn't realize how hard it was going to be when I did it. That I didn't realize how much travel I'd scheduled. So if we go back, I said, I got approached for someone to buy my practice. And they offered me an obscene amount of money. Far more than 2 or 3 times more than anyone was ever going to offer me for it. They just wanted my practice. They wanted my systems. They wanted to know how things ran. And I just went, you know what? I'm financially in a good position here. This is going to be just double cream on top of the cake. So I took it. And at the same time, I was just turned 50 years of age. My dad died at 49. I was slightly overweight. And I'm thinking, okay, I've now got the time to start doing something. So I thought, I'll walk an hour a day, every day for 365 days, and I'll listen to a podcast. What had happened is I told someone about it just before that, what I was going to do. And they said, what are you going to do after you record because I was going to shoot a video as well. Now, this was supposed to all be for myself. It wasn't for anybody else. And then the person I was talking to said, you selfish bastard. I said, what? They said, how dare you go out there and do all this, learn this information, gain this, record it and not share it with anybody? Why don't you just share it with everyone? I went, I don't think anyone's really going to be interested. Well, I was wrong. There were a lot of people that were interested. And it just went from there. But I look back at that year, and I went to Japan that year. So I walked in minus temperatures. Imagine I was in Vegas for 6 or 7 nights at your summit. So imagine turning up at your summit, doing that all day, but then having to get up at 5 o'clock in Vegas. And no one goes to bed early in Vegas. Not when you're with Tom Foster.
No, that's right. I did, but you guys didn't.
It was funny. I remember you saying to me one night, just when you go out, if you go out with Tom, just be careful. I said, no, not a problem. And then I remember 2 nights later I said, but you didn't warn me about Buster. That was in Arlington. That was the Arlington event. I said, so anyway, every day I walked through Vegas. I walked in the Arizona desert. I came across a bobcat and a rattlesnake having a fight. I walked in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne.
On cruise ships.
Yeah, I was on a cruise ship for 10 days. So I'd go and walk on the cruise ship.
You keep walking around the ship and talking. That's right.
Like a 1,000-yard lap.
Yeah.
That would be on this cruise ship. So I get up and do that every morning, then get back, have breakfast and get ready with it a bit. But at the same time, then when we got to land, I would have to find a Starbucks so I could upload my video.
Right.
And get it posted. So sometimes everybody's out there doing stuff and because I was so committed that I can't not do it.
Oh, you never missed. And when you got to about 40 days left, we're all like rooting for you and woohoo, and everybody's like, responding to all your posts. It was great.
Yeah. What was funny, the thing that I found the funniest is when I got to 365. It's one of my favorite videos was that one because there were 40 people turned up at my house waiting for me when I came up the street. There was champagne being popped. It was really, really good. I was so sick the next day that I couldn't get out of it. Even if it wasn't from drinking, I didn't drink that much. It was just like some flu or something had hit me and I couldn't get out of bed for about 3 days. I was so ill. And I said to my wife, even if I wanted to walk, I couldn't physically walk. And this was the next day. So it's like my body had just said, hey, there's something going on here, but we're not going to let you stop. You have to keep going. And what was funny is if I missed a day, I had to make it up. So sometimes when I traveled overseas, I would lose a day. Going over, I gained a day, but coming back, I would lose a day. So as I got to that last week, I was probably behind about 4 hours. So on that last week, I had to add on 4 extra walks just to get the 365 done. And I remember someone saying to me, I think we were in Melbourne, and it was like really freezing cold. I had to get up. It was still dark. I've got this big jumper on and coat and all that, and I'm about to get up and leave. And somebody later that day, I told them I just finished doing my walk. They went, do you know if you just missed a walk, no one would know. Or if you just went and walked for 15 minutes and shot the video and came back, no one would know. And I went,
we'd all know.
I said,
it would just be blazoned on your forehead.
I said, I would know. I said, you would know. I know. I would know I didn't walk the hour. I would know the distance. And there was only one walk that I know we walked for well over an hour. It was probably an hour and 45 minutes. That was when I was with Dave Freeze. And when we came across the rattlesnake and the bobcat. And Dave wasn't the fastest walker in the world. And we stopped and looked at so many cactus and things that he kept pointing out. That was the only walk where it wasn't like this consistent 1 hour walk. But it was a memorable one.
That still counts.
Yeah, that was the only one that I sort of questioned. I wasn't the proper 1 hour full-on walk. But I was glad I did it. When I about 4 months later, I said, I'm going to do year 2. I'm going to do a second year. So I started. And what happened, I got about hour 100 and I went, I'm bored. I've already done this. I wasn't getting the same enjoyment out of it. So I stopped. I just went, I proved that I could do it. I got so much out of it the first time. I used to take notes. I wrote 72,004 words or something. It's almost like a book of what I took away from all those different podcasts. So I recommend anybody, every day, if you can commit to half an hour of exercise and half an hour of mental stimulation, whether it's through a podcast, reading, watching some YouTube videos, not of cats playing the piano, but just something inspiring. I think if you can get in the habit of doing that every day, half an hour exercise, half an hour mental stimulation, it will change your life. And take notes down. What were your 3 biggest takeaways from the day or from what you just learned? And if you start journaling.
And from that journey.
Yeah.
From that journey, then, you fell in love with podcasting. You understood it at a deep level. You studied it pretty carefully. And then have launched several podcasts, one which is Podiatry Legends, which has been, wonderfully successful and enormously uplifting and helpful to people. And I think you've really, found a niche and that's kind of how you got to where you're at here. And that's what I see as prosperity. You just seem happy in what you're doing.
Yeah, and podcasting's fun. I've got this like small little coaching group that I do this 12-week reboot thing with them. And one of them actually asked me a question recently. He just said, if you're setting up a clinic tomorrow, what would be one of your number one marketing things that you would do? And like I always mention, I always say, if you can go to the top practice, then just go to it. Yeah. If you've got the capability to go, just go. I said, it's just, other than being fun, that's what you learn, and it's the people you associate with. That's one thing. But I always say to them, if I opened a clinic tomorrow, I would probably create a podcast. I would call it the Can Small Business Podcast. I would set up a little studio in my clinic. I'd have a sign at the back that said Can Small Business Podcast, sponsored by ProArch Podiatry. Not that that's my name anymore. I said I would bring business people in. We would do a quick little 20-minute chat about their business, maybe 30 minutes. Very little editing, and I'd be putting it every week. I said, now that person you came in and interviewed is going to tell all their friends. Every one of their friends is every week is going to hear Small Business Podcast brought to you by ProArch Podiatry. So you might be exposed to 50, 100, 150 people that you never would have been exposed to before. It just takes a little bit of timing, a little bit of planning, and there's a bit more thought behind it. But yeah, I think podcasting and audio is a really underrated tool that I think more podiatrists should be using in their business.
Yeah, but that's really the strategy. Doing a podcast about bunions isn't the goal. It's really about sharing, interesting information with other people that are connected, but also very different.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, if you don't mind. And this one, I'm interested. So we all have challenges. We all have obstacles we face, every day. Can you share what you deal with on your daily journey and what can trip you up?
I find it hard to stay focused. I'm very much shiny, bright light. So I'll be doing something. Mm-hmm. And if I'm really serious about what I'm doing and it's really important, I have to turn notifications off my computer because I'm easily distracted. And every time I get distracted, you might, there's a message in your phone. You answer the phone. I wouldn't mind a coffee. So then you go out and you make another coffee. And next thing, another half hour has passed. And sometimes I know I've got to the end of the day, and when I look back and go, what did I really achieve today? So that's probably my biggest challenge, is staying focused. So there's been a couple of us lately who have been saying to each other, each morning we send each other a message on Messenger, and the message is, what's your purpose? So each day is to remind ourselves, what's our purpose? And it's do it at the beginning of the day. Look at your day and go, what is your purpose? So what I've done now in my Google Diary, I've got a list of things on each day that, not that if they don't get done, it's the end of the world, but the things that must get done for me to feel that I had a good day. And I just put them in a certain color at the top of my diary. And as I do them, I just change the color. Now, I don't get them all done because I don't have to get them all done. But the idea is that is my focus for the day. And make sure that you can only do two of them because you've got a couple of podcasts to do. So say today, for example, the day that we're recording this is the day that I usually edit my podcast, do the show notes, and then get it uploaded. But I've also got a couple of podcast interviews to do. So the podcast interviews and the editing is priority. But I might have two other things I think, if I can get this and this done, that'd be great. But if I don't get them, it doesn't matter as long as my day was full of other things. So that's how I've taught myself to try and stay focused, is I have to keep reminding myself what needs to get done. And if they get done, then the day is good.
Yeah, if you don't plan your day, then other people will plan it for you. That is absolutely the case. You can get lost in all of that. So Tyson, the people that are listening to this podcast, they're really interested in achieving their own version of prosperity. And what advice do you have for anybody listening?
Other than, if you want a prosperous life, it takes work. And like I mentioned, there's wealth, there's health, and enjoyment. And you need to work on each of those areas. So that's the first thing. But I think you've got to go back and remember why you were doing it in the first place. Never forget why you're doing it. So if you were working for somebody else, you thought, I'm going to have my own practice. Why did you want to have your own practice? Is it because, I didn't want to work with idiots, or I want to have more freedom, because a lot of the times I want to have my own business so I can make more money and I can have more freedom. You know what? And I'll say when I'm coming to work and when I'm not. No, it doesn't always work that way. Usually the patients are telling you when you're working and when you're not. But there's usually a deeper reason why you want to have your own business. And to me, it wasn't until I was at a business black ops event, first event I went to, Dave Free says, any volunteers, we're going to dig into your why. And yeah, I'll come all the way over here, put my hand up for it. So I go to the event. Within 15 minutes, I've got tears streaming down my face. He broke me. He broke me in the first 15 minutes of this 3-day event. First time I've gone there, room full of strangers. And he kept asking, why? Why? When I go, oh, yeah, why? But all the way down until I brought up my dad dying, and I wanted to look after my family. I didn't want to leave them the same thing. Up until probably this talk right now is the first time I've been able to talk about that without getting emotionally upset. Even though still I am just a little bit right now saying that I don't get upset, I still do. Yes, I lied.
Yeah.
So to me, it's never forget, get down deep to find out what is the real driving force behind what you do. And if you get lost, then you can always go back to that and that will remind you.
And I think in the work that we do with doctors, and I work with Tina Del Bono, I work with Peter Wishney, and the one thing that doctors will say, what's the most important thing to you? They always say my family.
Yeah.
And then the question is, how have you prioritized them? And that's usually about 3 down the list. It's just everybody has it backwards, and it's not because they planned it that way. It happened, and the trick is, can you break that? And the answer is yes. We can all get our nights back. We can all get our weekends back. So Tyson, my fun question: if you were a toy, what toy would you be, and why?
I don't know. I probably first thing that comes to mind would be probably just like a cuddly teddy bear or like a cuddly basset hound toy. I love basset hounds. This is my favourite dog. Don't let my dog hear that because I don't have a basset hound. But yeah, probably like a cuddly toy, something that is held and loved by the owner. Not just a toy that sits on the shelf to look good and be shiny, that, oh, look, I've got this toy sitting there, but something that is actually loved by someone and is taken with them for a long period of time. Yeah, it's like when you watch Toy Story and Andy. Yeah, Andy and his toys. And to have Andy's name written on the bottom of your foot, that you feel like you belong to someone. And like how Woody he was like Andy's number one toy. So to me, that's, if you're going to be a toy, you want to be something that's held and loved by the owner of the toy.
Well, I think that's great. That is absolutely great. And no surprise to me knowing you. And so Tyson, can you recommend a really good book that we should all be reading?
Yeah, one of my favorite books, whenever I'm asked this, is Be Our Guest.
Oh.
It's about Walt Disney customer service. I remember reading that, and as I'm reading through it, going, wow, no wonder Disney is so good. Nothing happens by accident. The whole experience you have, nothing happens by accident. And I remember when we went to Disneyland, and I was just like, gosh, I was a big kid. I loved it, absolutely loved it. And we're at Disney, and there was this young girl, and she was all upset. The mother was going, oh, it's okay. And anyway, one of the staff members came up and said, oh, is everything okay? And she said, oh, she just said she had a bag full of stuff that we'd bought throughout the day. She left on one of the rides, and we went back, it was gone. And she's going, oh, that's terrible. And I saw the lady reach down to a belt and flick like a microphone and push this button. She goes, can you tell me what was in the bag? And she's telling her, oh, well, we're at this store, we got this, and when we got this, we got that. All of a sudden, she just kept talking to her, and within about 10 minutes, some guy came walking with the bag and gave it to her.
Yeah.
And I just went, and I'm sitting there watching this, and I've gone, I've just watched one of the most amazing customer service things I've ever seen in my life, where while she's talking, obviously someone's listening and is running around to these stores, picking up what she lost, putting it in a bag and actually giving it to her, and the look on her face. So that's why Be Our Guest I love. Anything that is about Disney and what he used to do and his thinking, just I get really inspired by.
Well, I can't thank you enough for sharing all of this with us today. Tyson, it's great to catch up, and I know that when these travel restrictions are lifted, we'll be in the same room together at some point. And
not wrong.
Yes, and we'll do that. But I just want to say thank you, my friend. Thanks for spending the time today and for sharing all of this.
No, thank you for inviting me on, Rem. And it's good, even just talking about the stuff reminds you why you're doing what you do. Yeah. And it makes me realize how good my life is. So I'm looking forward to giving you a big bear hug when I see you next.
Sounds good. I'm easier to get my arms around now.
None of this elbow stuff, Rem. We'll hug it out.
I'll bear hug you, but I'm not shaking anybody's hand anymore. That was always a filthy habit. No. I'm glad it's over. Exactly.
Yeah. Tap feet. If you just tap feet, that's easy.
Yeah.
Okay, Rem. Thanks for that.
Bye. See you, buddy.
Okay.
Prosperity is truly a journey. And in Tyson's case, it's a metaphor for his career and a literal reference to his full year, 365 days of walking every day, listening to a podcast and recording and sharing 365 short reports of what he learned. It was something to watch, and it was incredibly transformational for him. What could you do to achieve that kind of impact in your own life? Let me know what you think. You can send me an email at rem@toppractices.com. Prosperity is the entire focus of Top Practices. Most doctors are struggling with the business of medicine, and those that aren't truly understand that through association with other successful practitioners, they can take their success to the next level or something greater like prosperity. Prosperity in business is a function of mindset, marketing, and management. That's our mission at Top Practices. You can find out more about Top Practices, our marketing and management programs for doctors, our workshops, and our annual summit at toppractices.com. Until next time, this is Rem Jackson. Smile when you wake up, and then have a really great day. Your best day ever. Nothing is more important.